Hi there. It is Tuesday, April 6th, the 6th day of National Poetry Month, and day number 5 of Poems Every Day. Whew, finished Paradise Regained last night and have not had a chance to think about it, honestly, in any way that has given me some sort of like wonderful framing of the poem to share. It's cooking, a bit of a thinker. I have ideas, obviously, not very well formed ones, as yesterday's preface demonstrated, but I am thinking about it. I'm going to let myself keep thinking about it and might come back to it. I don't know, maybe in between now and the end of April, maybe at the end of after April. And it's crazy how different the world can be 1 year later. So also very much the same. But I, rather than being stuck at home during shelter in place, which is what would have been happening last April 6th, today I went to school and I taught, and I went after school to a couple of soccer games and a baseball game and got to rejoin part of the gallery community that I'd really been missing. So one, I didn't have a chance to go peruse editions of Dante, which I had planned to do at a used bookstore close by, and I didn't get to pick an edition, which is fine. And I also didn't take the time that I would have needed to take in order to finish bringing together my prefatory thoughts on Dante, explanation, a little bit of biographical detail and context, a little bit of literary detail and context, or literary historical detail and context, and the information you need, frankly, in order to understand what this poem, which we're getting ready to jump into together, is comprised of and kind of all about. As I was sort of beating myself up for that, though, I realized that that is way more than its own little brief preface, and frankly, might be useful just as something to have on its own and separate. So I'm gonna give myself a little bit of permission, give myself permission to use a little more time to get that really ready, and I'll share that in the coming days. I honestly debated whether or not I should just hold off on this today and weave the books, or the cantos together in future days, and just kind of chalk this one up to not enough time and lots of goodness to do on my 6th of April. But I'm not going to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Instead, I'm going to just jump right into this poem itself, and we'll see what we find. I am starting, at least, with an edition of the Inferno, given to me by my friend Lucia, who was also my Italian teacher in grad school at the University of Tennessee. And so it's only fitting that I at least start the Inferno with this edition. Got a little graduation card saved in here that she gave me. And it's so sweet. Little inscription from her. Then she also inscribed the front of the book. And she says, I should read this soon. And that her favorite is the 5th canto of this one, and wishes me happy reading, basically. This edition is a poetic edition, a verse translation, done by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, with some Gustave Doré illustrations, which a former student of mine will recognize. Yeah, Doré also did some illustrations of Milton, I believe. And that's how my former student, now friend, George, found Doré while I was teaching Paradise Lost. He did some Googling, and he loved what he saw. At any rate, that's plenty of just hey, let's have some fun little chat preface. Instead of continuing that, it is 9:30. I'm going to start reading. I'm probably going to stumble. I'm not even going to get into the poetic line, rhyme scheme, metrical scheme, etc. Instead, I'm just going to jump in, apologize for the stumbles that are going to come, I'm sure, especially the beginning, until I kind of get my feet under me with the rhythm. It's already a big change. I think you will hear a really big change from what we were used to with Milton. So I am setting as my planned pace and my goal 4 cantos per day. June is small, demolishing a towel. 4 cantos per day. That should get us through everything and leave me a bit of some wiggle room at the end of every book, the Inferno. But yeah, that'll give me about 2, like a kind of buffer, like a half as much to read the last night, so that hopefully I can bring some things together at that point. At any rate, I am going to get started without further ado. Okay. Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark, for the straightforward pathway had been lost. Ah me, how hard a thing it is to say what was this forest, savage, rough, and stern, which in the very thought renews the fear. So bitter is it, death is little more. But of the good to treat, which there I found, speak will I of the other things I saw there. I cannot well repeat how there I entered, so full was I of slumber at the moment in which I had abandoned the true way. But after I had reached a mountain's foot, at that point where the valley terminated, which had with consternation pierced my heart, upward I looked, and I beheld its shoulders, vested already with the planet's rays, which leadeth others right by every road. Then was the fear a little quieted, that in my heart's lake had endured throughout the night, which I had passed so piteously. And even as he who, with distressful breath, forth issued from the sea upon the shore, turned to the water perilous and gazes, so did my soul, that still was fleeting onward, turn itself back to re-behold the pass which never yet a living person left. After my weary body I had rested, the way resumed I on the desert slope, so that the firm foot ever was the lower. And lo, almost where the ascent began, a panther, light and swift exceedingly, which with a spotted skin was covered over, and never moved she from before my face. Nay, rather did impede so much my way, that many times I to return had turned. The time was the beginning of the morning, and up the sun was mounting with those stars that with him were, backing up. The time was the beginning of the morning, and up the sun was mounting with those stars that with him were, what time the love divine at first in motion set those beauteous things. So were to me occasion of good hope, the variegated skin of that wild beast, the hour of time, and the delicious season. But not so much that did not give me fear, a lion's aspect which appeared to me. He seemed as if against me he were coming with head uplifted and with ravenous hunger, so that it seemed the air was afraid of him. And a she-wolf, that with all hungerings seemed to be laden in her meagerness, and many folk has caused to live forlorn. She brought upon me so much heaviness with the affright that from her aspect came, that I the hope relinquished of the height. As he who is at goodness, and as he is who willingly acquires, and the time comes that causes him to lose, who weeps in all his thoughts and is despondent. In such made me that beast withouten peace, which, coming on against me by degrees, thrust me back thither, where the sun is silent. While I was rushing downward to the lowland, before mine eyes did one present himself, who seemed from long continued silence hoarse. When I beheld him on the desert vast, have pity on me unto him, I cried, whiche'er thou art, or shade, or real man. He answered me, not man. Man once I was, and both my parents were of Lombardy, and Mantuans my country, both of them. Sub Julio was I born, though it was late, and lived at Rome under the good Augustus, during the time of false and lying gods. A poet was I, and I sang that just son of Anchises, who came forth from Troy. After that, Ilion, the superb, was burned. But thou, why goest thou back to such annoyance? Why climbest thou not the mount delectable, which is the source and cause of every joy? Now, art thou that Virgilius and that fountain which spreads abroad so wide a river of speech? I made response to him with bashful forehead. O of the other poets' honor and light, avail me the long study and great love that have impelled me to explore thy volume. Thou art my master and my author, thou. Thou art alone the one from whom I took the beautiful style that has done honor to me. Behold the beast for which I have turned back. Do thou protect me from her, famous sage, for she doth make my veins and pulses tremble. Thee it behooves to take another road, responded he, when he beheld me weeping, if from this savage place thou wouldst escape, because this beast at which thou criest out suffers not any one to pass her way, but so doth harass him that she destroys him. And as a nature so malign and ruthless that never doth she glut her greedy will, and after food is hungrier than before. Many the animals with whom she weds, and more they shall be still, until the greyhound comes who shall make her perish in her pain. He shall not feed on either earth or pelf, but upon wisdom, and on love and virtue. Twixt Feltro and Feltro shall his nation be. Of that low Italy shall he be the savior, on whose account the maid Camilla died, Euryalus, Turnus, Nisus, of their wounds. Through every city hall shall he hunt her down, until he shall have driven her back to hell, there from whence envy first did let her loose. Therefore I think and judge it for thy best thou follow me, and I will be thy guide, and lead thee hence through the eternal place, where thou shalt hear the desperate lamentations, shalt see the ancient spirits disconsolate, who cry out each one for the second death. And thou shalt see those who contented are within the fire, because they hope to come whene'er it may be to the blessed people, to whom then, if thou wishest to ascend, a soul shall be for that than I more worthy. With her at my departure I will leave thee, because that emperor who reigns above, in that I was rebellious to his law, wills that through me none come into his city. He governs everywhere, and there he reigns. There is his city and his lofty throne. O happy he whom thereto he elects. And I to him, poet, I thee entreat, by that same God whom thou didst never know, so that I may escape this woe and worse. Thou wouldst conduct me there where thou hast said, that I may see the portal of St. Peter, and those thou makest so disconsolate. Then he moved on, and I behind him followed. Okay, that was the first canto. I forgot that this edition that Lucia gave me has a lovely set of, collection of things sort of like the arguments from Paradise Lost. The story of the Inferno in brief by Henry Francis Carey. So Canto 1, he explains that the writer, having lost his way in a gloomy forest and being hindered by certain wild beasts from ascending a mountain, is met by Virgil, who promises to show him the punishments of hell and afterward of purgatory, and that he shall then be conducted by Beatrice into paradise. He follows the Roman poet. This is the first moment where I've just really wanted to say the Italian Beatrice instead of Beatrice. It just sounds so much lovelier. But at any rate, I think I'll probably revert to anglicizing everything because it feels kind of pretentious not to, honestly. Anyway, so getting ready to read the second canto. Here we go. Canto 2. After the invocation, which poets are used to prefix to their words, he shows that, on a consideration of his own strength, he doubted whether it sufficed for the journey proposed to him, but that being comforted by Virgil, he at last took courage and followed him as his guide and master. So, Canto 2. Day was departing, and the embrowned air released the animals that are on earth from their fatigues, and I, the only one, made myself ready to sustain the war, both of the way and likewise of the woe, which memory shall retrace, that erreth not. O Muses, O high genius, now assist me. O memory that didst write down what I saw, here thy nobility shall be manifest. And I began. Poet who guidest me, regard my manhood, if it be sufficient, ere to the arduous pass thou dost confide me. Thou sayest that of Silvius, the parent, while yet corruptible, unto the world immortal went, and was here bodily. But if the adversary of all evil was courteous, thinking of the high effect that issue would from him, and who, and what, to men of intellect unmeet, it seems not. For he was of great Rome, and of her empire and the imperial heaven as father chosen, the which and what, wishing to speak the truth, were established as the holy place, wherein sits the successor of the greatest Peter. Upon his journey, which thou givest him vaunt, things did he hear, which the occasion were both of his victory and the papal mantle. Thither went afterwards the chosen vessel, to bring back comfort thence unto the faith, which of salvation's way is the beginning. But I, why thither come, or who concedes it? I not Aeneas am, I am not Paul, nor I, nor others think me worthy of it. Therefore, if I resign myself to come, I fear the coming may be ill-advised. Thou art wise, and knowest better than I speak. And as he is, who unwills what he willed, and by new thoughts doth his intention change, so that from his design he quite withdraws, such I became upon that dark hillside, because in thinking I consumed the emprise, which was so very prompt in the beginning. If I have well thy language understood, replied the shade of the magnanimous, thy soul attainted is what is with cowardice, which many times a man encumbers so, it turns him back from honored enterprise, as false sight doth a beast when he is when he is shy. That thou mayest free thee from this apprehension, I'll tell thee why I came, and what I heard at the first moment when I grieved for thee. Among those was I who are in suspense, and a fair saintly lady called to me in such wise, I besought her to command me. Her eyes were shining brighter than the star, and she began to say, gentle and low, with voice angelical in her own language, O spirit courteous of Mantua, of whom the fame still in the world endures, and shall endure, long lasting as the world. A friend of mine, and not the friend of fortune, upon the desert slope is so impeded upon his way that he has turned through terror, and may, I fear, already be so lost that I too late have risen to his succor, from that which I have heard of him in heaven. Bestir thee now, and with thy speech ornate, and with what needful is for this release, assist him so that I may be consoled. Beatrice am I, who do bid thee go. I come from there, where I would fain return. Love moved me, which compelleth me to speak. When I shall be in presence of my Lord, full often will I praise thee unto him. Then paused she, and thereafter I began. O Lady of virtue, thou alone through whom the human race exceedeth all contained within the heaven that has the lesser circles. So grateful unto me is thy commandment to obey if 'twere already done, or late. No farther needest thou ope to me thy wish. But the cause, tell me why thou dost not shun the here descending down into the center from the vast place thou burnest to return to. Since thou wouldst fain so inwardly discern, briefly will I relate, she answered me. Why I am not afraid to enter here. Of those things only should one be afraid which have the power of doing others harm. Of the rest, no, because they are not fearful. God in his mercy such created me that misery of yours attains me not, nor any flame assails me of this burning. A gentle lady is in heaven, who grieves at this impediment to which I send thee, so that stern judgment there above is broken. In her entreaty, she besought Lucia, and said, Thy faithful one now stands in need of thee, and unto thee I recommend him. Lucia, foe of all that cruel is, hastened away and came unto the place where I was sitting with the ancient Rachel. Beatrice, she said, the true praise of God, why succorest thou not him who loved thee so? For thee he issued from the vulgar herd. Dost thou not hear the pity of this plaint? Dost thou not see the death that combats him beside that flood, where ocean has no vaunt? Never were persons in the world so swift to work their weal and to escape their woe as I, after such words as these were uttered, came hither downward from my blessed seat, confiding in thy dignified discourse, which honors thee and those who have listened to it. After she thus had spoken unto me, weeping, her shining eyes she turned away, whereby she made me swifter in my coming, and unto thee I came, as she desired. I have delivered thee from the wild beast, which barred the beautiful mountain's short ascent. What is it then? Why dost thou delay? Why is such baseness bedded in thy heart? Daring and hardihood, why hast thou not, seeing that three such ladies, Benedites, are caring for thee in the court of heaven, and so much good my speech doth promise thee? Even as the florets by nocturnal chill bowed down and close when the sun whitens them, uplift themselves all open on their stems. Such I became with my exhausted strength, and such good courage to my heart there coursed, that I began like an intrepid person. O she compassionate, who succored me, and courteous thou, who hast obeyed so soon the words of truth which she addressed to thee. Thou hast my heart so with desire disposed to the adventure with these words of thine, that to my first intent have I returned. Now go, for one soul who is in us both, thou leader, and thou Lord and Master thou. Thus said I to him, and when he had moved, I entered on the deep and savage way. Whew. Canto 3. Dante, following Virgil, comes to the gate of hell, where, after having read the dreadful words that are written thereon, they both enter. Here, as he understands from Virgil, those were punished who had passed their time, for living it could not be called, in a state of apathy and indifference both to good and evil. Then, pursuing their way, they arrive at the river Acheron, and there find the old ferryman Charon, I don't know, whatever, who takes the spirits over to the opposite shore, which as soon as Dante reaches, he is seized with terror and falls into a trance. Canto 3. Through me the way is to the city dolent. Through me the way is to eternal dole. Through me the way among the people lost. Justice incited my sublime creator, created me divine omnipotence, the highest wisdom and the primal love. Before me there were no created things, only etern, and I eternal last. All hope abandon, ye who enter in. These words in somber color I beheld written upon the summit of a gate, whence their sense is, master, hard to me, and he to me as one experienced. Here all suspicion needs must be abandoned. All cowardness must needs be here extinct. We to the place have come, where I have told thee thou shalt behold the people dolorous, who have forgone the good of intellect. And after he had laid his hand on mine with joyful mien, whence I was comforted, he led me in among the secret things. Their sighs, complaints, and ululations loud resounded through the air without a star, whence I at the beginning wept thereat. Languages diverse, horrible dialects, accents of anger, words of agony, and voices high and hoarse, with sound of hands, made up a tumult that goes whirling on forever in that air, forever black, even as the sand doth when the whirlwind breathes. And I, who had my head with horror bound, said, Master, what is this which now I hear? What folk is this which seems by pain so vanquished? And he to me, this miserable mode maintained the melancholy souls of those who lived without an infamy or praise. Commingled are they with the caitiff choir of angels, who have not rebellious been, nor faithful were to God, but were for self. Heavens expelled them, not to be less fair, nor them the nethermore abyss receives, for glory none the damned would have from them. And I, O master, what so grievous is to these that maketh them lament so sore? He answered, I will tell thee very briefly. These people have not any hope of death, and this blind life of theirs is so debased, they envious are of every other fate. No fame of them the world permits to be. Misericord and justice both disdain them. Let us not speak of them, but look and pass. And I, who looked again, beheld a banner, which, whirling round, ran on so rapidly that of all pause it seemed to me indignant. And after it there came so long a train of people that I ne'er would have believed that ever death so many had undone. When some among them I had recognized, I looked and I beheld the shade of him who made through cowardice the great refusal. Forthwith I comprehended and was certain that this the sect was of the caitiff wretches, hateful to God and to his enemies. These miscreants, who never were alive, were naked and were stung exceedingly by gadflies and by hornets that were there. These did their faces irrigate with blood, which with their tears commingled at their feet by the disgusting worms was gathered up. And when to gazing farther I betook me, people I saw on a great river's bank. Whence said I, Master, now vouchsafe to me that I may know who these are, and what law makes them appear so ready to pass over, as I discern athwart the feeble light. And he to me, these things shall all be known to thee, as soon as we our footsteps stay upon the dismal shore of Acheron. Then with mine eyes ashamed and downward cast, fearing my words might irksome be to him, from speech refrained I till we reached the river. And lo, towards us coming in a boat, an old man, hoary with the hair of eld, crying, Woe unto you, ye souls depraved! Hope never more to look upon the heavens. I come to lead you to the other shore, to the eternal shades in heat and frost. And thou, that yonder standest, living soul, withdraw thee from these people who are dead. But when he saw that I did not withdraw, he said, By other ways, by other ports, thou to the shore shalt come, not here for passage. A lighter vessel needs must carry thee. And okay, so I had to stop because I wasn't gonna pronounce this word 12 different times in 12 different ways again. Yay, Greek. I'm gonna just do the American version again because that is comfortable. And unto him, the guide, vex not thee, Karen. It is so willed there, where is power to do that which is willed, and ask no further questions. Thereat were quieted the fleecy cheeks of him, the ferryman of the livid fen, who round about his eyes had wheels of flame. But all those souls who weary were and naked, their color changed, and gnashed their teeth together, as soon as they had heard those cruel words. God they blasphemed, and their progenitors, the human race, the place, the time, the seed of their engendering and of their birth. Thereafter altogether they withdrew, bitterly weeping, to the accursed shore, which waiteth every man who fears not God. Charon, the demon, with the eyes of glade, beckoning to them, collects them all together, beats with his oar whoever lags behind. As in the autumn time, the leaves fall off, first one and then another, till the branch unto the earth surrenders all its spoils. In similar wise, the evil seed of Adam throw themselves from that margin one by one at signals, as a bird unto its lure. So they depart across the dusky wave, and ere upon the other side they land, again on this side a new troop assembles. My son, the courteous master, said to me, all those who perish in the wrath of God here meet together out of every land, and ready are they to pass o'er the river, because celestial justice spurs them on, so that their fear is turned into desire. This way there never passeth a good soul, and hence if Charon doth complain of thee, well mayest thou know now what his speech imports. This being finished, all the dusk champagne trembled so violently that of that terror the recollection bathes me still with sweat. The land of tears gave forth a blast of wind, and fulminated a vermilion light, which overmastered in me every sense. And as a man whom sleep doth seize, I fell. All right, Canto 4, the last one for tonight. The poet, being roused by a clap of thunder and following his guide onward, descends into limbo, which is the first circle of hell, where he finds the souls of those who, although they have lived virtuously and have not to suffer for great sins, nevertheless, through lack of baptism, merit not the bliss of paradise. Hence, he is led on by Virgil to descend into the second circle. Canto 4. Broke the deep lethargy within my head a heavy thunder, so that I upstarted, like to a person who by force is wakened. And round about I moved my rested eyes, uprisen erect, and steadfastly I gazed to recognize the place wherein I was. True is it that upon the verge I found me of the abysmal valley dolorous, that gathers thunder of infinite ululations. Obscure, profound it was, and nebulous, so that by fixing on its depths my sight nothing whatever I discerned therein. Let us descend now into the blind world, began the poet, pallid utterly. I will be first, and thou shalt second be. And I, who of his color was aware, said, how shall I come if thou art afraid, who art wont to be the comfort to my fears? And he to me, the anguish of the people who are below here in my face depicts the pity which for terror thou hast taken. Let us go on, for the long way impels us. Thus he went in, and thus he made me enter the foremost circle that surrounds the abyss. There, in so far as I had power to hear, were lamentations none, but only sighs, that tremulous made the everlasting air. And this arose from sorrow without torment, which the crowds had, that many were and great, of infants and of women and of men. To me, the master, good. Thou dost not ask what spirits these may be which thou beholdest. Now will I have thee know, ere there thou go farther, that they sinned not, and if they merit had, 'tis not enough, because they had not baptism, which is the portal of the faith thou beholdest. And if they were before Christianity, in the right manner they adored not God. And among such as these am I myself. For such defects, and not for other guilt, lost are we, and are only so far punished that without hope we live on in desire. Great grief seized on my heart when this I heard, because some people of much worthiness I knew, who in that limbo were suspended. Tell me, my master, tell me, thou my lord, began I, with desire of being certain of that faith which overcometh every error. Came any one by his own merit hence, or by another's, who was blessed thereafter? And he who understood my covert speech replied, I was a novice in this state, when I saw hither come a mighty one, with sign of victory and coronet. Hence he drew forth the shade of the first parents, and that of his son Abel and of Noah, of Moses the lawgiver, and the obedient Abraham, patriarch, and David king, Israel with his father and his children, and Rachel, for whose sake he did so much, and others many, and he made them blessed. And thou must know that earlier than these never were any human spirits saved. We ceased not to advance because he spake, but still were passing onward through the forest. The forest, say I, of thick crowded ghosts. Not very far as yet our way had gone, this side the summit, when I saw a fire that overcame a hemisphere of darkness. We were a little distant from it still, but not so far that I in part discerned not that honorable people had held that place. O thou who honorest every art and science, who may these be, which such great honor have, that from the fashion of the rest it parts them? And he to me, the honorable name, that sounds of them above there in thy life, wins grace in heaven that so advances them. In the meantime, a voice was heard by me. All honor be to the preeminent poet. His shade returns again that was departed. After the voice had ceased and quiet was, 4 mighty shades I saw approaching us. Semblance had they nor sorrowful nor glad. To say to me began my gracious master, him with that falchion in his hand behold, who comes before the 3, even as their lord. That one is Homer, poet sovereign. He who comes next is Horace, the satirist. The 3rd is Ovid, and the last is Lucan. Because to each of these with me applies the name that solitary voice proclaimed, they do me honor, and in that do well. Thus I beheld assemble the fair school of that lord of the song preeminent, who o'er the others like an eagle soars. When they together had discoursed somewhat, they turned to me with signs of salutation, and on beholding this, my master smiled. And more of honor still, much more they did me, in that they made me one of their own band, so that the sixth was I, mid so much wit. Thus we went on as far as to the light, things saying 'tis becoming to keep silent, as was the saying of them where I was. We came unto a noble castle's foot, 7 times encompassed with lofty walls, defended round by a fair rivulet. Thus we passed over even as firm ground. Through portals 7 I entered with these sages. We came into a meadow of fresh verdure. People were there with solemn eyes and slow, of great authority in their countenance. They spake but seldom and with gentle voices. Thus we withdrew ourselves upon one side into an opening luminous and lofty, so that they all of them were visible. There opposite, upon the green enamel, were pointed out to me the mighty spirits, whom to have seen I feel myself exalted. I saw Electra with companions many, amongst whom I knew both Hector and Aeneas, Caesar in armor, with gerfalcon eyes. I saw Camilla and Penthesilea on the other side, and I saw the king Latinus, who with Lavinia his daughter sat. I saw that Brutus who drove Tarquin forth, Lucretia, Julia, Marcia, and Cornelia. I saw alone, apart, the Saladin. When I had lifted up my brows a little, the master I beheld of those who know sit with his philosophic family. All gaze upon him, and all do him honor. There I beheld both Socrates and Plato, who near him before the others stand. Democritus, who puts the world on chance. Diogenes, Anaxagoras, and Thales, Zeno, Empedocles, and Heraclitus. Of qualities I saw the good collector, height, Zizi, Dioscorides, and Orpheus saw I. Of qualities I saw the good collector, height, Dioscorides, and Orpheus saw I, Tully and Livy, and moral Seneca, Euclid, geometrician, and Ptolemy, Galen, Hippocrates, and Avicenna, Averroes, who the great comment made. I cannot all of them portray in full, because so drives me onward the long theme, that many times the word comes short of fact. The sixfold company in 2 divides. Another way my sapient guide conducts me forth from the quiet to the air that trembles, and to a place I come where nothing shines. All right, Inferno, Cantos 1 through 4. Until tomorrow.